My personal background is around large scale projects and program management. So I'm going to introduce that as we go. Um, this slide deck, there's plenty of times to I'll stop and I'll see what your thoughts are and gather up any questions. Um, I've been responsible for multi-year, multi-million pound transformation projects, where I was the overall person on point. But I also did a master's in information systems at the London School of Economics, and it was actually the 25-year postmaster's anniversary where I bumped into my now co-founder, business partner. She ended up working for the big four management consultancy companies in an assurance and audit vein. And basically, we got talking about what we'd learned at university, hadn't at that stage even been thought about in terms of an application to project management, so big data, AI, as it were. So since then, we've been working on applications of AI in project management. We've got a suite of products. I'm going to walk you through a couple of case studies today, as well as what is AI in project management, because there seems to be a lot of people talking about this. But when you dig into real case studies, they're very few and far between. What I must say is please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's QR codes there, or follow greyfly.ai. There's a lot of materials either on LinkedIn or on our website, as it were. In terms of a quick agenda, I'm going to talk about what is AI in project management. Then I'm going to talk about case studies, one about prediction, so how you can use project AI in project prediction to compare that to the most likely outcomes of a project. Secondly, to the application of lessons learned, really unlocking the knowledge that is traditionally shelfware around projects. And I guess I'm a bit of a project nerd in the fact that I think that's a really exciting application for Gen AI, as it were. So before I go into that, though, I quite like to get an idea of the audience, if I may, and maybe Gina, you can help me out here. But let's just get an idea of how
Yeah,
much people use AI or experienced of AI. Gina, I can only see you on screen, so I don't even know how many people are on the call, but this is just a way of getting an idea of people's knowledge level, obviously with a smile and an ode to Star Wars, as it were. So, are you an Ewok, or are you a Yoda, as it were? So an Ewok, you can't avoid AI at this moment in time. Maybe you don't use it in a work setting, but maybe you've had a little play at home or something. So very early days, or maybe you're starting to use it as part of your everyday work, and
yeah.
basic uses. So I don't know, checking your emails, or summarizing a report, or something. Or perhaps you've gone beyond that and you're more of a Princess Leia and you're really starting to embed applications in what you do. But maybe just an individual application rather than multiple, and really embracing, data first strategies and all of that good stuff. So, an Obi-Wan, obviously, if you're a Yoda, then maybe you should be on this side of the fence. So maybe just drop into the chat and let's see what level of knowledge we've got in the room. So I'll just give you 30 seconds, and then Gina, if you could perhaps just give me the headlines of how many people are in which category, as it were.
Sure, 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 Lloyd.
Thank you.
So, can everyone type on chat?
Any Yodas there? Any Obi-Wans there? Thank you, Irina. Ge- Generally speaking, as people are coming up to speed there, generally speaking, as you can imagine, most people are on the left-hand side of this grading. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Oh, Anne-Marie's an Obi-Wan. Maybe Anne-Marie should be talking to us today. Intriguing, Anne-Marie. I'm wondering what applications you're doing. Maybe you can fill us in as we go.
Yeah, because most of the tasks that I've been doing with John, I'm using AI. So I believe I'm between Princess Leia and Obi-Wan. So between
Well,
them,
well
yeah.
done to you. You know, I think it's still fair to say that you'd be an early adopter in this world of AI.
Yes.
Um, what I would say is, you know, I've been talking in this. I mean, I've done 20 talks this year already for,
Yes.
you know, various conferences to individual organizations. Thanks, Gina. And most people are at the EWOC and Chewbacca stage. As over the last couple of years, as I've been asking this question, you're getting increasingly people heading towards Layla and very unusual, Anne-Marie, to have an Obi-Wan in the room. So
Yes.
hats off to you. But
Thank you.
but no problem at all. But the point is, it's still early, and over the last 12 months, you get more people who are embracing AI, and you know, obviously, there's a difference between embracing at the individual level and embracing as an organization. And I think primarily this goes back to November 22 when, you know, it entered chat gpt into the public consciousness of all of us, I guess, and that's really fueled the use of AI. I mean, I was in a conference recently where the question was, you know, Gen AI versus machine learning. And I can tell you, the whole room, nobody had a clue about what machine learning was compared to Gen AI. So AI is bigger than ChatGPT, people. And of course, there are other applications or large language models other than ChatGPT. But I think that's been the real game changer. If you start thinking about it in the project domain, the way that we like to classify it is from two different dimensions. First of all, from an efficiency dimension. So in other words, trying to do things right, trying to do more for less. So trying to drive efficiency through the work process, as opposed to the other dimension, which is more about what are you doing in the first place, so doing the right things, so more about the decision making. So the way we like to classify things are efficiency, doing things right, effectiveness, doing the right things. Now, you know, if you think about ChatGPT, that's very much in the efficiency side, and yeah, perhaps it informs a bit of the effectiveness side as well. And just to repeat what I was saying there, at an individual level, we are experimenting, and companies are now starting to embrace, but it's very early days still. It's nascent technology. And when you look at companies that have gone through beyond an initial mobilization or an experimentation stage, there are very few indeed. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of case studies in a second. Right. But before we do that, let's just give this another go about what AI in project management is. So here is a very high level project life cycle. So you go through a pre-approval or a business case stage, or if you're bidding for winning project work, once you've been successfully through that stage, we go into the deliver stage, and then hopefully we create an asset and we operate those assets. What AI in project management is doing is it's trying to understand your historical experiences and take that data and turn it into information, and in turn turn that into knowledge and serve it as early as possible in the life cycle. Now, we, as well as serving knowledge, we also serve predictions. And why are we trying to do that? Well, we're trying to provide us as humans with intelligence so that we make the right actions or undertake the right interventions to increase project success. Now, I said there was a lot of commentators in this area, and if I just break down what everybody is saying around these two dimensions of efficiency and effectiveness. And just to repeat, they're not completely strict between them. One informs the other informs the other, as it were. But those are the use cases that people are typically talking about around AI and project management. Now, you're not going to have it easy, people. So can you think of any use cases that aren't mentioned there? Anybody got any ideas? Any ideas?
I got none on my end.
No problem at all, Amory. The one, I'll just give you a view. Oh, thank you, Ita. Yeah, WBS, I mean, that's all part of planning, but absolutely, you can get a good WBS out of ChatGPT, etc., very rapidly. I think there's lots of stuff around prompt engineering. I'm sure you guys have seen that PMI launched their prompt engineering training course last week for their PMI Infinity tool, as it were. But yeah, WBS is a great point. And all of that is about fast tracking. Yeah. So I mean, certainly when I was in the world of projects, in terms of responsibilities, I used to love the brown paper and the post-it notes up on the wall, and that could take me days, if not weeks, to get to that point, as it were. And now I can do that with the right prompts. I can do it in a matter of minutes, so I can fast track that initial stage. And yeah, Gina, absolutely right. And you can see risks is listed there. Risks for me is one of the key points here. The one that I pull on that's not necessarily there, which I find kind of interesting, is about communication. And the reason why I find communication kind of interesting is if you think about thank you, the initial piece of technology here, it's about the technical side of project management. But I'm pretty sure as AI gets more mature, yeah, the communication side is where it's going as well. There's been announcements literally today about AGI, artificial general intelligence, where basically that's the doctoral level of intelligence within the machine. OpenAI have just declared their roadmap along that path. In other words, we're in 5 phases. We're in phase 1 of OpenAI. Not here to debate whether that's a good or bad thing, as it were, from an ethical stance point of view, but certainly I think communications, it's coming to us in the project management profession. Back to one of the key messages here for me is you guys need to embrace it. Yeah, you need to embrace artificial intelligence in project management. So ultimately, the whole purpose is to reduce project costs and increase project success, as it were. So just building on this a little bit more, in terms of the products on the marketplace, there's a 2x2 grid here. So down the left-hand side is how adaptive, or dare I say, how intelligent systems are. And across the right-hand side there, across the top, is how much the human is in the loop. So if I start in the top left-hand corner, this is traditionally where AI has been working. So in particular things like chatbots, as it were, they've been around a little while now, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great, as it were. But it's all about streamlining workflows and automation. And as we've moved forward, we've gone into the virtual assistants, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether your organization has internal chatbots, for example, but the use of ChatGPT is really becoming our assistant. And, back to that point we were making about the WBS, it's helping us fast track our work so that we can do things quicker, as it were. RPA, robotic process automation, again, just to bring those workflows together across multiple systems. Microsoft are massively pushing a product called Copilot. Again, because it's low code, it's very easy for a user to pick it up and start getting benefit from it. The people in the technology land may not have completely the same view as that. I think if you then go down to the bottom left-hand side, for me, this is where we as an organization primarily operate. So in the insight and foresight area. In other words, it's all about prediction. Now, I'm sure you guys are aware there's about 150 PPM tools on the marketplace at this moment in time. Certainly when I was brought into the profession and we only had MS Project, it is way beyond that now, and it almost feels like every week there's a new PPM tool. Now, as I said earlier, I've been to several conferences recently. I can tell you that every PPM provider is talking about AI in some form. Now, I'll let you debate about how much smoke and mirrors is in place with a lot of that. But certainly from an awareness point of view, you can't not talk about AI. If I go to the right hand side, to the bottom right there, hopefully you can read that. Somebody was saying it's quite hard to read the black out of the brown. So the bionic AI applications or the self-directed. So this is basically the thinking machine, yeah? So where the human is not in the loop, and we're drifting towards this moment. So I pull out digital twins. Presume most people will know what a digital twin is. It's a mirror of the outcome of your project. So typically it's been coming up through the construction sector, so before you actually build something, let's have a little look at a 3D designed world. Now, I'm just going to ask you guys a question, and again, please use the chat, as it were. How many people think that we'll get to a moment in time where there will be bionic or self-directed projects, with no project managers? What's people's views? Please drop it into the chat. Do you believe? Let's have a quick vote. Will that ever happen? Will we have self-directed projects? Okay, so we've got a no from Eta. Anybody else think there'll be? Do we all agree there won't be self-directed projects? Anybody think that there will be? Are we all safe as humans? Are the robots going to take over? Thank you, Irina. So, couple of people there. Again, I can't see how many people on the call, but a couple of people saying no, that won't happen. And certainly, that's the general answer that I get when I present that question. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you. And Gina as well. So of the people that I've seen the answers, we've got 100% of people saying that the robots won't take over, and we're all safe to sleep in our bed comfortably at night, as it were. And that's the general answers that I get whenever I pose that question. If I may, I'm just going to ask the question in a slightly different way. Do we think we'll get to bionic project managers within 100 years? Did anybody change their mind if I put the time horizon of 100 years on? So, anybody believe that we're slightly less safe in our beds? For those people that said no, is it still a no? It's a doesn't believe. For me, it's a really interesting question, and the longer you look out, I think the more likely it is to happen. Let me just back that up a second. Currently, today, there are already startups that have billions of pounds of investment to create humanoid robots. And there's not just Elon Musk, there's a company coming out of Sweden as well. There is also wars going on where there is no human intervention. There's drones fighting against each other. Thank you, Daniela. More hybrid. Thank you, Daniela. You're probably in my view of the world as well, which is the world is evolving at a rapid rate of knots. And when it comes to the capitalist world we live in, that if there are efficiencies to be had, it's only a matter of time. The common parlance in this space is that, oh, you won't be displaced by AI. Thank you, Gina. That's again, you see why I was asking the question. You start thinking about it slightly differently, as it were. The common parlance in this space is you won't be taken over by somebody with AI. Sorry, you won't be taken over by AI. You'll be replaced by somebody with AI skills. Now, I think that's actually playing to a crowd, and certainly one that's in the 5 to 10 year horizon. When you start looking further out, who thought that we would have driverless cars on the streets of some countries already? Certainly in the UK, you would have never believed that. It is coming. Thank you, Anne-Marie. So I think when you start thinking about this from a time horizon, I think it is obvious that some projects will end up being run by the computer, as it were. Now, the type of projects, I think, is the second dimension to that question, which is if the project is more simple or more consistent or decision tree based, then I think those are the type of projects where the human will start coming out of the loop more rapidly. We've already got that going on in some worlds. Again, when I ask the questions, some people talk about the recruitment process, for example, where, we put a CV in and already the first pass, the qualification is done by a computer, by word matching, by looking at your history, looking at your experiences as well. I think if you then start taking that through to the next stage of the workflow as well, so you're seeing chunks of the workflow already disappearing in operational areas. And I honestly believe that will be exactly the same as to projects. Why would projects be exempt from this same drive, this same push? Again, so just have a think about that in terms of, we've just talked about AI driving efficiency and then driving effectiveness. And we're saying, whoa, hold on a minute. How come us as project managers will be exempt from this AI revolution? We will not be. So it's okay. I think again, this point is about your children as well. I think we'll be okay. Sorry, Gina, I didn't have a chance to read that from Irina. Do you want to just pose that question to me, Gina?
Yes, Lloyd.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't quite see that question that just came in. I think there was a question that came into the chat.
It's Irina asking, in your opinion, what new skills the project managers will need to have to
What,
effectively work with AI?
yeah, what skills was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, by the way, Irina. Thank you for that. I think also it's the point about the moment in time as well. So, in the short term, I do think it is about the technical skills. So, the use of ChatGPT or Gen AI generally, you guys, as project managers, in my mind, you're more likely to be innovators, you're more likely to be leaders in the first place. So, use those type of skills as quickly as possible. Again, just to name check PMI. PMI have done some great courses recently. Do them all, embrace them, use Gen AI today. Depending on your role, obviously, you may not be the decision maker within an organization's use of an AI. But what I would suggest you do, because you are innovators and you are leaders, that you start to influence your organizations. You start demanding the use of AI because it will make your life easier as well. I think the last thing I would say is that typical layer of technical skills, but ultimately for me, project management is about a soft set of skills. So change management, influencing skills, those type of skills. And again, if you start becoming increasingly red in this area, what you'll see is that there will be a wave that we go through to get to this moment where your soft skills are completely your differentiator as an individual. But from my point of view, wasn't that always the same? If you've got great interpersonal skills, then you're more likely to succeed as a project manager in the first place, whether it's trying to influence somebody to get something done when nobody else can do, or the way that you command your steering group, as it were, or present to your steering group. So I think there's some waves there. There's technical piece, embrace, embrace, embrace. Companies push for your company to embrace, but ultimately get your soft skills right, as it were. Now, I'm going to move on because I'm in the interest of time, and I want to talk to you about a couple of case studies. So this first case study is around this product called Intelligent Project Prediction. This organization, this is the UK division of a global organization that you guys will know. They have about 300 projects in their portfolio and about 100 live at any one time, worth hundreds of millions of pounds. Like most organizations, however, they had a challenge about delivering delivering projects to plan, to budget, and certainly when you compare to the original plan and budget. And those people that oversaw the projects just didn't know which way to look, which project should they focus on? Because although they were getting reports in, there was bias in those reports as well, because us as project managers don't generally like to deliver bad news, as it were. So what we did is we stood up a project prediction tool. I'm going to talk to you about how that works in 1 second. And we applied that to both projects that were live and projects not yet started, as well as the prediction of the project, so the predicted outcome. So what we do is we focus on the big moment. What would be the final budget? What's the most likely go live? But we also provide which are the most important drivers for that prediction. So if I may, just to get that to leap off the page for you, I'm based in the UK. So imagine projects out of the UK that use, I won't pick on any particular company X as the prime supplier. If I look through my historical experiences, those projects out of the UK that use company X always were double the budget, double the time. If I've got a live project out of the UK that uses company X, the system is going to recognize that pattern. It's going to apply some machine learning, and it's going to predict that that live project is in line with that historical experience. Now, I've given you there some very basic examples of feature matching, UK, geographical region, prime supplier, company X, as it were. There's obviously a much richer pattern than that around the projects. And similarly, projects are also dynamic in their nature, so you need to be able to update. Traditionally, what we would do in a PMO or an assurance function is get an army of people together to work out what we thought the most likely outcome of a project, or to assure the outcome of that project. We can now, once systems are trained with good quality data, we can do that at our fingertips, and we can do it all of the time. We don't have to re-engage an army of consultants to get a latest update. Now, I've mentioned data there a couple of times, and again, without teaching you to suck eggs, these type of systems are completely dependent upon the data. So the old adage of garbage in, garbage out is never so important as it is in this world of AI. We've all read about the prompt engineers with the nonsense answers, but it's exactly the same here around machine learning and prediction, as it were. So what we've done is when we onboard a customer, the first thing we do is a data maturity assessment, which basically benchmarks the quality of the data within that organization's projects. But actually, what we've also done is built in a data maturity assessment. So every time there's an ingest and update of project data, the latest actuals, the latest forecasts, or the latest projects, as it were, in the intervening period, we work with a PMO to make sure that any data quality issues are being addressed. Now, one last thing I just want to mention quickly is that in a later release, what we realized was there's some great value here to optimize the mix for that project. So, for example, what would happen to that project that we identified out of the UK with Company X that was overspending? What would happen if we swapped it to Lebanon, Gina? We'd obviously come under budget and come in a lot earlier as well. So if you can work out what the optimum mix of the project features are, you're increasing the likelihood of project success. And obviously, if you can do that before the project's committed, then there's even greater value. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what we've done. Now, let me tell you about the outcomes. So like most organizations, this company started with very low data quality. And just to chime what I said a second ago, like most organizations, they had a large majority of projects, over 30% in this case, overspending. More scary though, they were overspending by greater than 70%. And when you're running into millions of pounds, that is a big number, as it were. It wasn't all bad news. You can see there was some 30% under there as well. So what we did is we basically stood up this process around improving data maturity. And what I should say, I'm sure you guys are aware, there's a direct relationship between data maturity, project management maturity, and project success as well. Let me repeat that so that you get that idea. The relationship between data maturity, project management maturity, and project success. Hey guys, we should be focusing on our data maturity, What we then did is make sure that the prediction system is working extremely accurately. Now, we define prediction accuracy as the difference between what the system was predicting versus what actually happened on the project. Yeah. And we keep that front and center within the system, not only from a technical point of view to show that the prediction is working, but from a change management point of view as well. And I'm going to come back to change management in 1 second. We predicted the outcomes, and ultimately it was about, well, which areas could I find those savings in by swapping the UK to Lebanon, as it were. I'm really happy to say that we changed the dial around data maturity, and we've really increased it. But perhaps even more fascinating is the fact that we've now got a system that is predicting at 95, 96% accuracy right at the start of the project. Now, you think about, if you know the most likely outcome of a project right at the start, would you even undertake that project in the first place, as it were? So this is all about data-driven insights around your projects. That's now had the knock-on effect to reduce the number of projects overspending, but also reduce the amount that they've been overspending by. So it's all about driving interventions, and this has then led to this lessons case study that I'm going to talk to you about in 1 second. Let me very quickly tell you how it all works, as it were. So on a monthly basis, we have an API. They use PlanView as their PPM product. So on a monthly basis, we take an ingest of those project updates, actuals, forecasts, new projects, closed projects, etc. And we play back those predictions at the highest level in terms of what the most likely budget is, what the most likely go live date is. But we also play back in a prioritized fashion as to which features are driving the outcome of that prediction, both at the individual project level, but also at the portfolio level. So is the UK always a problem child, as it were? The way that we got to that moment was through a series of onboarding steps. Funny enough, we run onboarding like a project in its own right. I mentioned about the data discovery exercise, so benchmarking the data maturity. We also supply a set of recommendations as to how you can improve your data maturity, as it were. If an organization's at lower data maturity, obviously you can't just flick a switch and make a machine learning based system extremely accurate. You have to go on a journey, a transformation journey about putting data at the heart of your projects as well. So sometimes that discovery piece can also include things like defining the enterprise data model, defining the data rules about which data you maintain and which ones you don't, as it were. In turn with that, we work out what the data model for that organization would be. So if you imagine, intelligent project prediction is like a vanilla product that is then configured to that particular organization. We're a Microsoft partner, so for those that want to know, it's built at the back end in Azure, and it's actually a Power BI front end. So you can also have this debate about, do you integrate it within existing dashboards? So we're building out the back end. The hardest bit in this is obviously that first data load, that first data preparation, as it were, and then we configure the front end, as it were. We run a whole heap of different machine learning models, and the system picks off the ML model that is proving to be the most accurate for that data set, and that may change on a monthly basis. Similarly, the data scientists are working on fine-tuning the ML models to both drive the accuracy of the prediction, but also to maintain the accuracy of the prediction, as it were. We then just go through that handover and review period. I said a second ago I was going to focus on change management. Now, what I would like you to think about here is that, same as any successful project, there is a technology work stream here, but there's definitely a change management work stream here, as it were. You can imagine the long in the tooth project manager who you're suddenly saying, well, you're reporting X on your project, the prediction system is saying Y. We have to take those people on an adoption journey, and that's another reason why we have those accuracy of the predictions front and center within the system. The adoption side, as well as defining the ROI or the KPIs around the project, think about some of the KPIs on the page previously around savings, is also that training, the communication. But also we've built the system in a relatively simple way in terms of how do you get to the insight. So 1, 2, 3 clicks maximum. We really work hard on the UX, as it were. The final bit about change management for me is about the workflow integration. So you can imagine in projects in delivery, where would you use this system? Well, the monthly progress report from the project manager is saying X, tell me what the prediction system is saying. Or maybe the gate review. So we've come to the end of a gate. What do we think the plan is to complete the project, or an assurance review? If it's project's not yet started, when we're proposing a business case for a project, tell me what the prediction system is saying. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit more in 1 second. But I'm going to stop again for a moment to catch my breath, but also to see if there's any instant questions. Any questions from anybody? Is that all making sense? I've blown you away with technology. Okay, I'm going to move on. I don't think I've never had any questions before, so maybe that's me. Maybe I'm feeling too jaded, as it were. Right, so let me tell. Oh, here we go. Anne-Marie, thank you. Okay, no problem at all. So let's talk about the other case study here. So if you remember when I talked about what is AI in project management, the other piece was about unlocking knowledge. And for me, this is where lessons come in. We all know that if an organization has gone through the hard work, um, I'll come back to you in 1 second, Gina. Gone through the hard work of the capturing of lessons, they often become shelfware. You know, they're not actually used at all. So, as well as trying to work out, as us as project managers, you know, what are the right lessons to do with my particular project, we have this challenge of accessing them as well. And then when you do access them, they're often written, if I call it, in a natural language kind of way. So in other words, it's very hard to understand exactly what the lesson is. Well, step forward Gen AI, I think, is the general summary. So this particular organization, it's the same as the other organization. They've gone through that hard work of capturing lessons. They've got a lesson. They use a product called Lesson Flow. I've never heard of it. It's a dedicated project lessons product. They've got 5,000 lessons in there across 200 completed projects. They do capture lessons at the end of phases, but generally it's at the end of the projects. But it's just sitting there. So, you know, you need to start accessing those lessons and really making the most of it, again, to increase the likelihood of project success. So what we did is first of all, imagine the system, and if I go back to my example of the projects out of the UK that used supplier X, as it were, sorry, company X as its prime supplier. If I looked at all of my completed projects out of the UK, give me all of the lessons from those completed projects. Now that's interesting because I can now start linking those lessons to live and not yet started projects out of the UK. But of course, across 5,000 lessons, there's 1,000 lessons that also occur that came out of the UK. And of those 1,000, I don't know, a vast proportion are repeated lessons. They're just coming from multiple projects. So the first thing we did is we did the linking via those features. Yeah, and again, if you remember, I'm only giving you some very basic example of 2 different features. There's lots of different features involved, but then we applied Gen AI to objectify the lessons so that then they're articulated in a much clearer, objective way, as it were, and all the duplicates are removed. However, that's just the lesson side. What you can also do is apply that same thought to the mitigation side as well. And note I use the term mitigation because for me, lessons are just the other side of the coin of risks. A lesson has occurred, a risk may occur. So the same technology can be applied to your risks as well, as it were. So you've now got the right lessons being served to the right projects, articulated in an objective way, but you've also got the mitigations as well. Now, the mitigations have all come from the internal data sources, but what we've then done is we've looked at the mitigations through OpenAI, so ChatGPT at the back end. So we have developer licenses in place with those guys, so that we're now getting the best of breed in terms of both the internal lessons and the external mitigations as well. And all of that can be served up. Longer term, my hope is that we can start blending that with maybe what people may perceive as more credible lessons sources. So I don't know, PMI's Infinity product becomes a commercial offer, as it were. The other thing that we've done is at the front end, we have a chatbot type stuff, so natural language, so you can start feeding in the same way as you feed with any prompt. Tell me the lessons about this, and instantly you get answers as well. So that's what we've created, obviously in a nice user-friendly kind of way. And I think that one of the most interesting things for me is about the number of duplicate lessons. It's been kind of interesting also to get those lessons at the right level of granularity, and that's something that is an ongoing process to make sure that there's sufficient detail there. I personally come from the school that if you get your foundations right, the most of your project risks will bounce off. So it's about those lessons, as it were, at the right level. One of the most intriguing things for me, however, was the fact that as we did all of this process, we identified a new group of users that we hadn't seen coming. Now, I'm just going to give rise to what they're called, and I'm sure you probably have a similar function in your organization. So there's a function called investment control. Those people that appraise business cases. Now, you think about what they do. They basically look at a proposed business case and they say, what's the most likely outcome? Has it ticked all of the necessary process boxes? But it also tells you which are the similar projects and therefore trying to drive you to do the lessons as well. Well, you think about it, we're sort of doing quite a bit of their work for them now. We're appraising the most likely outcome of the project. We're telling them who are the similar projects as well. Apologies, I didn't talk about explainability earlier, but I was demonstrating what the prediction is saying. Why the prediction is saying. So we identify the similar projects, which is creating that prediction. But we're also now supplying the interventions as well. Now, you think about once this gets more and more intelligent, go back full circle about the impact of AI on project roles, as it were. You can already see that that's been impacted, as it were. So, freeing people up to do more richer assurance checks. For me, the next bastion in this is about making sure, if you've got the knowledge, making sure you're using that knowledge. So have you actually learned that lesson? The closed loop there of, did the lesson work? Did the mitigations work for that lesson? So if you imagine, that's where we're going on this piece, as it were. Just very quickly, so we've got a couple of minutes at the end for any questions. I've seen a couple pop in. In terms of the lessons at the highest level here around implementing AI in project management, these are almost the lessons that you would write down for any technology type project, or maybe any project. The number one lesson for me is get the right sponsor in place. We've been extremely lucky with some of our host organizations that those sponsors are at the right level of the organization, but they're empowered, they're budget owners, they can push and their peers at board level as well. Data quality, I think I said that earlier. I think, again, apologies if I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, but it's all about the data, which hasn't necessarily been the case before. We'd start a new project and we almost start with a blank bit of paper every time. Well, come on, guys, it's time to wake up. Yes, there is some technical complexity here, but nothing that isn't insurmountable with the right skills, the right capability. The ethics thing is an interesting one. So, for example, one of those features might be the project sponsor. If this project sponsor is involved in a project, is the project more or less likely to succeed? Well, that's kind of interesting knowledge, and maybe you need to train those people that are involved on projects that don't succeed. And by success, I mean deliver to time and budget, as it were. But hold on a minute, that's based on that sponsors only worked on one project and they came in to rescue it as well. So you just got to be careful with some of your conclusions. Back to that human in the loop. It's way too early to take the human out of the loop, as it were. The point is, though, it works, and hopefully just those very rapid oversights I gave you of the case studies is that taking a data-driven approach works. I've said it about 3 times about change management and people resistance. You need to put that in place. Similarly, it needs budget as well. Here we are in a world where AI is now starting to fuel projects, programs, PMOs. It is possible, but please remember there are technical and people barriers, but it's heading towards enabling data-driven decision making, but it's a transformation journey. So plan it like a transformation, maybe even crawl, walk, run to the success. Let me finalize here with a little quote. And again, just think about when you read that, just think about what I was saying about will AI take over from a project manager? It's already starting to happen. It's just a question of how we embrace it, as it were. So that's me just about done. I think we've got a couple of minutes for any final questions. I just encourage you to follow me, follow greyfly.ai, as it were. But thank you very much for listening. Gina, I think there's a couple of questions that popped into the chat there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The first question is from me. How we can ensure transparency and accountability when we apply AI beside of accuracy?
Yeah, so transparency for me is the reason why we have that prediction accuracy in the system, So we constantly demonstrate how well the system is performing versus what actually happens on projects. And, people may argue against that, but it's a statement of fact because we use a host organization's data. So if the word budget means X to them and they're reporting it within their current account system of this is the budget, then that's the figure we're using. We're trusting the organization that they've reported the right budget figure in the first place. So we try and take that away. The trust thing I think is really interesting because thank you. I've just seen the question come in. I'll address that one as well. The trust thing is, I think, is really interesting because for me, that's about adoption. And there's massive resistance to change. It's still nascent technology. We're owned. That's what I said. November 22. When was that? 18 months ago, something like that. 20 months ago. So it's still early, but you can't avoid it. In the short term, people no doubt will be resistant to change, but it's coming, guys. So, was that question about, all projects are different? Was that what I just caught a very glimpse of? How can you predict each different project? So that dovetails exactly why we take a top-down approach. Yeah. So what that means is that a host organization is most likely to have data in multiple different sets, as it were, at the highest level. You're more likely to have that data, but we're only predicting the big outcome. Yeah. If I need to predict down at task level, I need a lot more data, and I need to be able to blend that data together, which then really hits that data quality question as well. It's all coming, but we've deliberately taken that point of view, and we similarly don't blend data from one organization to another because we think every organization runs projects differently. I mentioned budget there. One organization's definition of budget is different to another organization, as it were. So it is completely possible, and hopefully, by those prediction accuracy points, I should have said those projects, they're technology projects, they're property projects, they're business change projects. So it is completely possible. So
Yeah, great. The second question is from two questions from Irina. Can you please share with us which are, in your opinion, some of the most popular AI tools currently used in PM? And
yeah, I think the most popular ones for me are ChatGPT, but I think
yeah,
if you're a PMI member, PMI has its own chat thing, which is called PMI Infinity,
yeah,
which is pretty damn good. But that's just the chat side of it. On the other side, I don't think there's a leading PPM tool that I would be recommending in this space at this stage. Similarly, there are some organizations that just use AI for risks, for example, that it's a bit like a what do you call it, gold rush for people to bring more and more products to the market. I think as an organization, if you've got a requirement, then it's about making sure that you do that appraisal, or getting people to help you to do that appraisal of what is on the marketplace. But hey, we've got a great suite of products, so get in touch if you're interested in prediction.